Good morning, everybody. Today's session is titled Ladies' Day at the Poetry Bar. Ordinarily, I hate to discuss weather, but April Fool's Day yesterday brought such a patch of nastiness out of the sky here in western Pennsylvania. I can't avoid talking about it. Every hour on the hour, the sky dumped a 5-minute shower of snow. Then the next hour it would be sleet, and then mixed media, if you will, and then rain, and then the whole cycle repeated itself, and this went on all day long. My pet squirrel kept coming to the back window, soaking wet, demanding another pecan, and I kept giving them to him, or her. I'm not very good at sexing squirrels. Out of sympathy for his dripping wet ears and whiskers, until finally he couldn't eat anymore, so he carried the last one off and buried it. I saw him do it. I thought the squirrel was so funny it made me think of Ogden Nash poems. And then I thought, there were some good women humorous poets writing contemporaneously with Ogden Nash. Why not hear from them? Let's see, there was Dorothy Parker, and then there was actually one less well-known than Dorothy Parker, but in many ways a better poet. Her name was Margaret Fishback. She was a phenomenon in her day, during the 1930s especially, when she was the top advertising executive for Macy's, because after all, it was women who were doing most of the purchasing. And this lady was very, very skillful at getting them in for a shot. So here's a poem that she wrote called Into Each Life Some Rain Must Fall. Margaret Fishback. Sometimes I wish that I were dead, as dead can be. But then again, at times when I've been nicely fed on caviar or guinea hen, and I am wearing something new and reassuring, I decide it might be better to eschew my tendency to cyanide. Margaret Fishback was very good at writing short, punchy poems where the humor hits you at the very end. And this is certainly a good example of that. Into each life some rain must fall. Now, that book that came from was published by E.P. Dutton in 1933. At that time, Margaret was one of the highest paid advertising executives in New York, working on ads, addressing products of interest to women, as I mentioned. And she was in great demand. Here's her own poem, which addresses that. It's called Taking Everything into Consideration. Let me make sure I've got the right one here. Yeah, here it is. The problems of a working girl are more than meet the naked eye. And life becomes a dizzy world at times, and dizzy too am I. I have not found the answer yet, and this is just a working plan. I shove along and do not fret, nor yet depend on any man. To be a mother and a wife, I am often urged by all my kith and kin. But as for husbands, life is easier without than with. I think there's a lot of young women, including one of my granddaughters, who would certainly agree with that statement. And there it is. at the end of another one of Margaret Fishback's punchy endings. Margaret Fishback, after her retirement from Macy's, and she wasn't depending on poetry for any of her income at that time, kept writing poems, but she was finding it harder and harder to get them published. And she wrote these lines to a budding poet about that time, and contains some interesting historical views of maybe why poets in the late 50s and early 1960s were finding it difficult to get published, especially poets who published in more traditional forms like Margaret did. But here are lines to a budding poet. Bear in mind, my little man, never let your verses scan, and acceptance will be sparse if by any chance they parse. But whatever else you do, let it not be said of you that your poetry makes sense. That's a criminal offense. I have some sympathy with that view myself. So now let's move on to Dorothy Parker. And I'm going to do so after a little sip of throat-clearing coffee. The morning coffee is a must for me. I can tell you that right now. Okay, this poem by Dorothy is called Interview. The ladies men admire, I've heard, would shudder at a wicked word. Their candle gives a single light. They'd rather stay at home at night. They do not keep awake till 3, nor read erotic poetry. They never sanction the impure, nor recognize an overture. They shrink from powders and from paints. But so far, I've had no complaints. Dorothy was a rather free character in her adult life. Never got too far out of bounds, but she was, I guess, a case. And she was a free woman, without any doubt about it. Now then, I want to give you one more by her. It's called Resume. Razors pain you. Rivers are damp. Acids stain you. And drugs cause cramp. Guns aren't lawful. Nooses give. Gas smells awful. You might as well live. Now, in that poem that was written in the late 20s, I think Dorothy Parker was taking a swipe at a woman poet who had a lot of fame at the time and who had recently taken her life by inhaling gas in London the year before. It would have been just like Dorothy to do that. Well, we're done for today. And I hope you've enjoyed the session with women humorist poets. I found some poems of my own that may be in the mix next week. Look and listen again then, and I hope your weather is better than mine is likely to be in the coming week. But we always have hope, and I'll say that the daffodils around here are blooming beautifully, and some of them have been naturalized on the hillsides, and that might even inspire me to write a poem about naturalized something or other. Let's not say what. In any case, have a nice week. I'm going to try to do so as well, waiting for this spot inflicted on me by a dermatologist this week to heal, and I'm sure it will. You realize if you've had to be in attendance at a dermatology clinic that dermatologists hardly ever approach you if you're 50 years old or more without a can of liquid nitrogen in their hand. And it's a little distracting, but you know exactly what's going to happen long before it does. I might even write a poem about that. Who knows? In any case, have a good week, and I hope to see you or be seen by you at that time. Bye now.